Howdy folks, welcome back to Black Sheep Meadow. I'm Brent.
And I'm Amber.
And we got a good one for you today.
Yes.
So, just a yes?
Just a yes.
Just a yes? Okay.
I need to work on my ad-libs.
So we are coming into actually today is the summer solstice.
Today is the summer solstice.
This
it is the longest day of the year.
Mm-hmm. And we are really seeing the effects of the summertime heat on the garden.
Yes.
It's the Texas heat has been really pushing hard, and we're starting to see the decay of some of our plants.
It's really hitting the squash plants.
Yeah, the squash plants. Now, here's what we got to say about the squash. This is our best year that we've ever had squash. Every year in the year past, we've always had problems with squash vine borers. And really, by the time the plant was 75 days old, the squash vine borers were on their way taking them out.
And Brent has done an amazing job of stopping them in their tracks, keeping them, preventing them from laying eggs, preventing them from getting anywhere near our squash. We haven't lost a single plant to squash vine borers.
We've lost a couple of squash plants, but not the vine borers.
That's what I'm saying, not to the vine borers, which I am just thankful for. If you've ever had a battle with squash vine borers, you can feel the pain there. But the heat is starting to take effect. Mm-hmm. So what we've been trying to do is let some of the squash that is still growing grow way past prime.
Gigantic.
Like that. Like this is one that I would not have normally let go this far. You know, these are, scallop squash, or we call them patty pans, which is probably one of our favorites. We've let them go to be like really big, past what we would normally consider prime, for us to save seeds for next year. Correct.
Yeah, we're going to seed save off of all of the overgrown fruits, and it's actually I think they have a term for it, and I believe it's called naturalization. And the seed, basically year after year, if we take the most prolific plant that we have, or the plant that's doing the best, and then we save the seeds from it, and that plant is just more robust, or it has a genetic immunity to maybe bacteria that's in your soil, or things that are in your climate that are just bad for other plants. Things that wouldn't.
It's a healthier plant year after year because it's used to our temperatures and our soil and our water and
all the things combined.
Yeah, so we're hoping that that's the case. So some of these that we've left go way past prime. Of course, if you grow squash, you always know that there's a few that you forget. And I think that's really typical in the zucchini.
Correct.
It never fails. You always have one that you swear you didn't see yesterday, and then you come out there and the thing is like this.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's no way I missed that yesterday.
But that being said, not only are we going to seed save from this, we're going to save the meat of the squash, and we're going to dehydrate it and make zucchini bread. You've actually made a lot of zucchini muffins already this year.
Right, and that's not a dehydrated zucchini, but I will make a ton of zucchini bread and zucchini muffins. We're doing the flour. I like using zucchini for stuff like that. So other than just taking the seeds out of this, I will definitely repurpose the rest of this, not just to the chickens or the compost. I really enjoy that in summertime, is making stuff out of the zucchini, even the overgrown ones.
Yep.
So I don't look at these as a bad thing. Now, the cucumber.
Yeah.
This is a cucumber, guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, we had a cucumber vine that actually dipped down in between a couple of our raised bed buckets, and it sprouted a fruit, and it was in the perfect hidden spot. I mean, I didn't find it till this afternoon when we were culling back some other plants.
So it's definitely one that we'll seed save, and then it'll go to the chickens. But yeah, it was pretty amazing that it was kind of hidden in between some buckets. We never even saw it, and it's way past its prime.
Then I want to talk to you a lot about our butternut squash. We've done butternut squash, 2-3 years in a row now?
It's probably 2 years.
This butternut squash preserves very well just on the kitchen counter.
Oh, yeah.
I think we had a butternut and a spaghetti squash that just sat on the counter for almost 3 months last year.
A long time.
And
I kept forgetting that it was on the counter and thinking, okay, I'll cook it tomorrow, and
it just kind of hung out there.
It just didn't happen.
And it didn't require any canning, freezing, nothing of that. So that worked out really well. So we'll have these over the rest of summer. Once again, the butternut squash and the spaghetti squash plants have suffered really major damage from the heat.
They're not, and maybe they'll do better in the fall.
Which is something else I want to talk about too. So y'all, we have several videos on our container bed and our Hugelkultur mound. All of our container bed that we did squash in, the plants are really seeing the effects of the heat. Now, the 102 degrees that we've had, it's not just about putting shade cloth on them. The fact of the matter is it's 102 degrees and everything's just, our tomatoes are cooking on the vine.
Yeah.
So But what I have noticed is the Hugelkultur mound. Obviously, the Hugelkultur mound this year was just kind of an experiment, and all of our leftover seeds after planting in the raised bed or plants that we just had left over went to the Hugelkultur for experiment. All of those plants, from the onions, everything has just been far superior to anything that's in the raised bed.
Yeah, you can't even tell that the heat has been that bad. The squash plants and that are in there look just like healthy squash plants. You don't see any effect of the heat at all on that Hugelkultur mound.
Now, what I contribute that to is the mound is so massive that the temperature regulation, like it regulates itself. You know, you're still getting the blast from the afternoon sun directly on the leaves, and you'll see the leaves wilt. But overall, the moisture content and the temperature of the mound stays a more consistent level. It's not drastically up and down. Yep.
It definitely has some advantages. If you have the room and the space to start a Hugelkultur mound, I highly recommend it. It is a very neat way to grow garden vegetables.
And I think before the end of this video, we'll get them over there and show them how our mound's doing this year. We did have a few loss of plant in the Hugelkultur mound, especially the squash plants. We've already harvested
We've harvested quite a bit.
We harvested onions, tomatoes, potatoes, the beans, and we harvested some carrots out of it as well. So really the only thing that's left in the Hugelkultur is the squash.
The squash.
But some of the squash plants on the Hugelkultur mound did receive a lot of damage from hail through a bad storm that we had, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And that's where quite a bit of the extra large ones have come from.
Yep.
And then, the tomato plants, we're definitely seeing the effects of the heat on the tomato plants, but they still seem to be rocking and rolling. There's plenty of bloom still.
I've noticed on some of the tomatoes where they have a lot tougher skin on them from the sun that essentially is baking them.
And of course, so we'll harvest, and like tomatoes like this that has this top part on here, I'm fine with that. I'm going to make sauce out of this. I'm perfectly fine with this tomato. There's nothing wrong with this tomato. I'm going to use it. Then we'll have tomatoes like this where it actually split open and it's got a soft spot. So this will probably just go to the chickens or the compost mound. The chickens will love it. So I will pick things like this off the tomato plants. It's not anything... I don't think there's any way to prevent this, other than if I would have picked it earlier.
Maybe.
But I really like my tomatoes to ripen further on the plant. You can definitely pick them when they're green, and they will ripen on the counter.
Correct. And when
I just prefer to pick them when they're like this off the plant. Like I cut this one off the plant 5 minutes ago. So I prefer to cut them. I like them to ripen on the plant, but I should probably, because of the temperatures, start harvesting them a little bit earlier, just so that I don't have things like this from heat and water and birds and all that kind of good stuff.
I would like to say it's hard to get the camera in there, but y'all have seen in other videos where our trellis is, we did the garden beans over the trellis with some of the squash plants at the very end. And then we did a line of the raised bed buckets through the center of the trellis. And we did Roma or Roma-like tomatoes in those buckets. Now, those tomato plants are just loaded with tomatoes right now.
They're loaded.
Now, the problem with that is the trellis is just not big enough. The tomato plants have grown so thick, it's very hard and difficult to get it through there.
It is. So we're going to have to kind of rearrange or remodel. I love the way we're doing it. I love that it's through the middle, but we might have to kind of redesign, rethink about...
So my original thought with the trellis and the tomato plants through the middle, and that's exactly why it's been so successful, is the beans started to fail really early on. Like really when we started getting to 90, 95 degree temperatures, the bean plants they took a real beating.
They slowed down.
So when they faded off, the bean stalks and the remaining leaves were able to shade the tomatoes. And of course they had excellent irrigation. And the tomato plants really flourished.
They did.
Well, because they flourished so much, they filled up the inside. I can't get through it now. So, I mean, that's...
So we're going to have to kind of either thin the buckets next year, maybe every other bucket not be there, so you can kind of have a little bit more room.
It messes with the irrigation, though.
Or we're going to have to make it a little bit wider and maybe not as tall. Something. We're going to have to rearrange something because I really, really like how that trellis is working and how it's functioning for multiple different plants throughout the spring and the summer.
And if you can see, maybe our sunflowers. I don't know if you can see our sunflowers.
You can kind of see them back there.
The sunflowers are planted in a U shape, which is shading our watermelons.
Yes.
And they are flourishing and doing extremely well also.
We showed you the sunflowers and some of the watermelons a couple weeks back. they're still rocking and rolling. The sunflowers are getting close to their prime.
They're probably right at the peak right now.
Right at the peak, and now they'll start to kind of, but we're going to leave the stalks there as long as possible, especially until the watermelon is harvested.
Good, correct.
So it will provide some shade and some sense of protection against 100-degree days.
That being said, we're just now coming into the month of July, and I got to restart all this. We're going to be super busy getting everything ready for the fall. So y'all know that my goal for this year is to produce 4,000 pounds worth of bulk food. I've done the weights and measurements, I believe, last week for where we are so far. Now, we still got a lot of harvest and crop to pull in. We still got some corn.
These tomatoes all right here, and some of this squash has not been counted yet. So this is all today's harvest.
We are just now right at just shy of 2,000 pounds, and that's including all of our chicken eggs. And we got a 4,000 pound goal,
So I don't know. It's going to be close. It's going to be really close. We'll see.
But the next few weeks, we're going to be really busy. We're going to start on a new Hugelkultur mound for y'all. We're going to add on or basically build another right next to the one that we have currently.
Right.
And then,
the pepper plants are just now taking off.
Correct. The peppers don't provide a lot of weight in product, though.
But they're I enjoy pepper plants so much.
Yeah. That'll be all of our seasoning.
That's a pretty purple bell pepper.
Yep. So
I like it.
We'll get all these cut up. Save the seeds that we can, save them for next year.
And I'll probably, if you've had zucchini, this zucchini, even though it's huge, will do just fine on the counter until I'm ready to I need some more for making muffins or bread or anything like that. And then when I cut it open, that's when I scrape the seeds out, and he usually does that part.
Yeah.
But I usually scrape them out, set them to the side. He separates it.
I want to mention too, though, that all of the product that we're saving seeds from is all open pollinated or heirloom vegetables.
Yes.
So if you have a hybrid plant that is basically composed or pollinated from two different varieties, you don't know what you're going to get out of the saving the seeds.
Which was why we were kind of curious on the pumpkins, because those were commercially bought pumpkins that could have been hybrids from anything. So what kind of pumpkin or gourd were we actually going to get? And we've gotten several pumpkins, like actual pretty perfect little pumpkins.
Let's get them over to Hugelkultur mound so they can see how well it's done.
Let's do that.
All right, so here we are at the Hugelkultur mound, and you can see the mound has settled quite significantly over the past, I guess, 8 months or 9 months or so since I built it. Look at the squash plants. I mean, what else do you need to say? Almost 120 days in, and we have thriving squash plants. You can kind of see a little bit further in the back where the squash, there's a couple of plants over there that took a real beating from the hail, but this is definitely the way we're going to be growing in the future. Not that I'm going to do away with raised beds. We're still going to do the buckets and containers, but this is definitely, our ancestors definitely knew what they were doing whenever they did this. So I want to show y'all too. Amber, can you bring them in here? I just started on the top of this mound. I had it a little too far off, but I had a soaker, a water hose on it, and this is the first time I've irrigated this mound. And really, I take it back. This is the second time I've irrigated this mound this season. So this mound has required no irrigation. Right now, we are just past, I guess, 2 weeks on the rain. And it's just, the mound does phenomenal. It's drought resistant. It holds nutrients. Like I said, you can see the video is going to explain for itself. I mean, that's just absolutely phenomenal. Alrighty folks, before we conclude today's video, once again we want to encourage you to become self-sufficient, quit depending on the system.
Yes, just do a little bit, a little bit. Just see what you can do today just to make yourself just a little bit less governable. Yeah.
So in the meantime, if y'all guys like the video, leave a like on the video. If you like what we're doing, trying to encourage y'all to go out and do the same for yourself, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Amber or myself will make sure to reply back to you. In the meantime, we'll see y'all next week.
We'll see you next week.